Kathy and Stephanie, and Mike, thank you so much. Thanks for coming. In the morning, we really, really appreciate it. I guess.
And Whitney, who does it in the afternoon?
Okay, there is no thank you there because they wouldn't even let me get a word in edgewise. So we do not appreciate you, Whitney. So no, thank you, Whitney, for starting them in the afternoons. It's very nice of you to do that as well. Also, I was also told the new buses, if you're the people that are starting the new buses, turning the light knob to automatic, then those lights go off. So Mike, can you kind of give them a refresher in the morning of how to do that? You don't have to do it now, but that's just so that the lights stay on. Okay, but thank you so much. It's very much appreciated. Also, I just want to say we have started watching some video and we have not seen anyone on their phones on them, so I just want to give you guys a shout out. So thank you for not being on your phones. Wanted you guys to know that that's happening, you know, with distracted driving and being on your phones. That's two things in. Also the tie-downs. Make sure that you're doing the tie-downs right from the front to the backs and getting all four and all your tie-downs and belts. So thank you guys. Also backing up in the parking lot here. Just give a little honk when you're backing up, just in the parking lots and when you're just backing up, not at houses. No, I don't want you honking your horns at houses, but just when you're backing up. So there's so many vehicles, there's so many buses that come in and out of here, this parking lot. Just give a little honk when you're backing up to let people know, because when you're backing up back here, you have the right of way, but make sure that no one's behind you first. But so just give a little honk. But that doesn't mean when you get out here on this road to say goodbye to your friends, don't honk when you get on the road, because there are people sleeping. There's a guy over there that works nights, and we've gotten a couple complaints. So we love that you're saying goodbye to each other and hi to each other, but don't do it through a honk. Thank you. Also, I'm human and I might have the wrong time on an outing. So if you see a time on the upper part that is different than the description part, please call in the dispatch and find out which is the right time. Alicia, you've done a great job of doing that and coming in and letting me know, Cam. I appreciate it. A lot goes on, and we're all human, and we all make mistakes. But you manage your own schedule. And so if something doesn't look right or off, please come talk to me about it, because it just makes us look bad. And so I just want to make sure that even if you see times off on community, please, check with Scott, because things do change. And that's how we communicate with you guys, is on when to work. Okay, we are looking for some full-time drivers. Laura and Tom LeMay have both left us, 291, 294. Elizabeth is going to be taking over 294. So we are looking for a driver for 291, and then another driver to help Jerome out on 302. So I'll be looking for a couple drivers, and I'm looking for a full-time sub driver. So if you're interested, it does make more money, and you love change, and you love to do different things every day, come and let me know, and I'll tell you all about it. So we are looking for that as well. Okay, we have talking about new drivers, we have a couple of new part-time drivers. We have John King over here, he's a part-time driver, so he's doing tonight, community, roads, he's going to be doing it all, so thank you, John. And then Jerry, am I not seeing Jerry? We have another part-time driver, he's going to be probably the majority of the loop for Scott. So if you see another new driver, welcome him, his name is Jerry. Thank you. And then we have some anniversaries. So Kevin Toma, he's been here 2 years. Thank you. Thank you for your years of service. Bob Yeager and Bob Borgstrom, they both started at the same time, 3 years. Bob Yeager. And Bob Borgstrom is, he goes south for a couple months, so when he comes back, tell him happy anniversary as well. Tom Jones, 5 years. You will be getting your certificate and pen for that 5 years. Where's Tom? I don't see. Oh, there he is. Thank you, Tom, for your 5 years. I'll be giving you a pen and your certificate when I see Melanie. Dale Sherber, he's not with us today, but he's been here 6 years. So thank you, Dale. And we have one special lady that's been here 10 years, Whitney. So thank you for your years of service. You'll get a pin. And also Dr. Melody, you also, with your 510, you get a special little gift, so you'll get an email as well to be able to choose something from that. So thank you guys. I'm going to give the floor to Mike now. You can hold the special weapon.
Just before we get into this, Douglas, couple more thank yous regarding this cold weather. First of all, thank all you guys for being here, being out there, and being available to provide the transportation for the folks we serve through these difficult days. I did have a couple people ask how we make the decision if we're open or not, on whether it's days like this or snow days or those type of things. And if at all possible, we try to be open. Always go under the assumption that we are going to be open and operating. And we understand the concerns and don't want to put any security risks out there. But at the same time, the programs we serve and the people we serve, by having to cancel a day, puts a lot of challenges to those individuals, whether they're family members or their group homes, may not have plans for those people that day. And so for us not to be out operating, if at all possible, we can, puts a lot of people in a lot of difficult situations. And for those individuals that need transport, that this weather does have significant health risks, whether they're in wheelchairs or being outside too long, has significant risk for them, they can always cancel their rides. So people can cancel rides, but if we are closed, they can't send them in any other way. So if at all possible, we try to be open and provide the services that we do. Also, they're not here. I want to thank the mechanics for the work they do to try to keep these buses operating through these conditions. Storm was here yesterday, jumping the bus that didn't start and making sure that it was available for us today. And they do a great job of doing whatever they can to make sure all these vehicles are operating. So with that, show a video. Okay. We are going to show a video honoring what today is, MLK Day, and then we'll have some reflections on that. Feedback.
So we're going to start the video halfway through. It's long, just shy about 13 minutes. We're going to pick up from where just before the some forecast.
They also soon decided to make the SDLC movement open to all individuals, regardless of race, religion, or background. King and the SDLC grew determined to bring national attention to the plight of Black Americans in Birmingham, a city that was regarded as one of the most segregated places in all of the United States. The objective of this campaign was to end discriminatory practices in hiring, desegregate stores, and accelerate the desegregation of schools. And in a direct violation of a ruling against protests, King held a Good Friday demonstration on April 12, 1963. That day, he and 50 others were arrested. And later, our friend smuggled a copy of the local newspaper to Dr. King while he was in his cell. He opened the paper to find that 8 white clergymen had published an essay that criticized the march that he had led and other similar demonstrations against racial inequality. In the piece, entitled "A Call for Unity," the clergyman urged black locals to refrain from letting outsiders sway them toward unwise, untimely behaviors that might incite violence, and told them to stick to petitioning the local courts for their rights. Deeply frustrated by what he had just read, King, in that moment, began to write the response, doing so in the margins of the very newspaper he had read the column. And King didn't hold back, and this document became one of the most central documents of the entire civil rights movement. In his letter from a Birmingham jail, King rejected the idea that what was happening in Birmingham wasn't his business. Quote, "I cannot sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what happens in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly." He pushed back against the idea that if black people were just patient, equality would soon come. Quote, "We know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. For years now, I have heard the word, wait. It rings in the ear of every Negro with piercing familiarity. This, wait, is almost always meant never." And then he made his famous assertion that the white moderate was an immense danger to the success of the civil rights movement. Quote, "I must confess that over the past few years, I've been gravely disappointed with the white moderate. I had almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's greatest stumbling block in his strive toward freedom is not the white citizens counselor or the Ku Klux Klan, but the white moderate, who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action, who paternalistically believes he can set the timetable for another man's freedom. When he was finished, he had written nearly 7,000 words, and with the help of his attorney, those words were smuggled out of the jail and printed in newspapers and magazines across the country. King's letter did not just speak directly to the clergyman, it was also an appeal to America's soul. The SCLC was not the only organization working for the desegregation of public services in search of racial equality. So too was the more radical Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, also known as SNCC. These two organizations were largely working toward a similar set of goals, but often had different ideas of how to get there. You see, the SCLC strictly applied the model of propping up one charismatic central leader. And in this case, it was Dr. King. SNCC, on the other hand, emphasized group-centered leadership. But despite the differences in approach, there were also times when the two organizations worked together, like the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom and the 1965 March on Selma. The combined efforts of SNCC, the SCLC, black and white citizens, and ministers from across the country proved successful, finally applying enough pressure to get Lyndon B. Johnson to sign the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. In late 1967, the SCLC opened a new chapter with its Poor People's Campaign. It was launched to close the wealth gap between whites and blacks and to combat the growing racialized threat of poverty in the United States. As Dr. King put it, what good is having the right to sit at a lunch counter if you can't afford to buy a hamburger? Just as King was pivoting SCLC's work toward economic justice, he was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee on April 4th, 1960. Unfortunately, the Poor People's Campaign collapsed in his absence. After King's death, the SCLC remained active in aiding black voter registration and supporting protests across the South. But the late 1960s met the growth of a more militant set of protesters, leaders, and intellectuals. The burgeoning black power movement was taking root. People were becoming disillusioned with the idea of nonviolent, peaceful protest. Speaking of nonviolence, there is another important point to make. Sometimes people can turn Dr. King into a sort of caricature of himself that strips him of any political complexity that was actually central to who he was. People love to cite his line, "I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." And in doing so, they basically turned him into a single line in the "I have a dream" speech, and made him out to be some sort of non-violent kumbaya statement. And while it is true that Dr. King was deeply committed to nonviolence, a deeper analysis of his work, writing, and speeches revealed that King's political views were often more radical and more expansive than they have often been made out to be. For example, King advocated for a guaranteed universal basic income and guaranteed employment for anyone willing to work. One of his basic principles was that no one should be forced to live in poverty, while others live in luxury. Additionally, he spoke out against the war in Vietnam and American imperialism more broadly. In a 1967 speech, he called the United States government, quote, "the greatest purveyor of violence in the world." And while King seems to be widely loved and respected today, it wasn't always that way. In 1966, just 2 years before he was killed, according to Gallup polls, 2/3 of Americans didn't approve of him or his work. All of this is a reminder that advocating for social change, pushing against the status quo, and fighting against those in positions of power doesn't mean you'll be popular when you're doing it. In fact, you might be vilified, just like King was. But attempting to build a better society has never been about being popular or well-liked. It's about trying to build the sort of world that we all deserve to live. Even if it means you won't get to see that world yourself. And King, more than anyone, he knew this. He famously said in the last speech he ever delivered, on the day before he was assassinated, quote, "I've been to the mountaintop. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we, as a people, will get to the promised land." Thanks for watching.
So, can you hear me okay? So if people can't hear me, just give me a signal, let me know. As I watch that, something that really sticks out to me is talking about how advocating is something that is not always popular. And whether you guys are realizing it or not on a daily basis, you are advocating for people with disabilities, with their ability to be treated more equally in our society. A lot of the work that our programs are doing is trying to help them with employment opportunities, with income generation, with different things that help them become more like us than separate from us. So as we reflect today on Martin Luther King Day, take a little time to think about some of the words he talked about in his fight and how it impacts the work that we are doing here at New Tracks as well. You know, he dedicated his life to the pursuit of equality, justice, and peace. Very relevant to our work here at New Tracks. His message of nonviolence and his commitment to civil rights remind us of the importance of creating a work environment that everyone feels welcome and as though they belong to part of a team. Relevant for the people that we are providing transportation for, and relevant for the type of organization that we want to be here at New Tracks, where everyone feels like they belong, that they are part of this team. And I feel like this group of people in this room is doing a fantastic job of working towards efforts that people feel welcome, that they feel like they belong. We are proud to have everyone in this room as part of our team and part of this organization. And we hope that you feel proud to be part of this team. So, you know, as I think about the legacy that he left behind, he helped take a giant step. Those steps and that work continues to be very important. And I feel it's one of the things I love about what we're able to do here is that we're helping people take those steps as well and be a broader, more included part of our society. So, just some of the thoughts I had. I wrote down some quotes that I think are meaningful to me. And if you come up to my office, I actually have his "I Have a Dream" speech, the words of it posted right by my desk. But some of his quotes: "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase." And when life's most persistent and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? And I can without a doubt say everyone in this room has chosen to work in a profession that they are taking great steps for others on a daily basis. I've decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. And one of my personal favorites is, the time is always right to do what is right. So, I think it's important for us today to reflect on this. Many people are not working today, but I think it's even a better opportunity to be able to get together as a team and talk a little bit about why this is a national holiday. So, I don't want to spend a lot more time on this, but if anyone has any personal reflection that they would like to share as well, we can take a few minutes to do that. If not, that's totally fine too. But I'd like to give people an opportunity to do so if they're with us. Also think it's important today, that's another significant day in our country as well. Our inauguration plays a unique role in our country. And regardless of how you feel about the person leaving office or coming into office, not something we want to get into today, or preferably in a work environment. But in general, Inauguration Day, we honor our past as a country, and we try to look forward to the future, hoping for peace and prosperity moving forward, which, regardless of what we think of any of the people in the position, is something that we can all agree upon, that as a country we're hoping for peace and prosperity moving forward. So also want to acknowledge that today is Inauguration Day as well. So, with that, I will turn the page a little bit. Originally, we were scheduled to have a drivers only meeting today, and through some feedback from just some people in general, that they thought that we were doing that too often, that twice a year, that there were some challenges with those conversations as a whole. So we, as an administrative team, had 3 different questions that we would like to ask you guys for some feedback on as some decisions that we're making moving forward and how we proceed with some of those decisions. The first is something through video watch, just things that we're noticing in general, something that we've talked a lot about over the last few years, is the importance of getting up and getting out of the door to welcome each client into the bus. Some of you do an absolute fabulous job with it, an amazing job with it, and others are not doing this regularly. Before we make any decisions on how that is looked at moving forward, if there are reasons that we need to be aware of that create challenges, or that you feel this is not something that should be really an important part of what we look at from job expectations moving forward, we would like to hear why that is. And we want your input and thoughts on that before we make any further decisions on how we look at this moving forward. So,
Can I just say one thing?
Absolutely.
I know a certain amount of my clients feel like I'm moving down the ground trying to help them.
Sorry.
So they get a little frustrated with me coming out and trying to help them, and they're like, I can do it. You know, so I have to know which ones to approach that way, or not approach.
So the comment was that that there's a certain number of riders that are riding on the bus that feel like that assistance may be taken away from independence and looked down upon by requiring that assistance. And just so you guys know, as an administrative team, our plan is not to give reasons for these things today, because we're just trying to listen and hear at today's meeting. And so we're not going to respond to them, but we are taking note of what those comments are and some of these reasons. And that's a very valid one that we have for us, so we appreciate you bringing that up. So thank you. And don't take our lack of response as not taking this seriously or important, because we very much do. We just don't want it to get into a trying to respond and solve it, and we're just trying to listen here today. Yeah, Jenna.
In regards to that going on, I don't get up for everybody, because I've got a few of my clients that are younger, and they're like jackrabbits. By the time they get out the house, they run down the driveway, and I couldn't even get out of my seat before they were out on the bus, and they're already muffled.
The comment was, there's certain people that get to the bus and get on too quickly for us to even be able to get out of the bus and get to that front door before they're on the bus. Is that accurately represented?
We ask the people, if they're struggling,
The suggestion was, we ask if people want us to begin on the bus to welcome them on or off the bus. So, okay. Yep, thank you. Mike?
We're dealing with two different issues here. How do we greet them? We can greet them from the seat. Good morning, how are you? You ready to go? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As has been mentioned, some of these people don't want to go. Some of these people are so fast that they're on the bus before we can get out the door. The other thing is, having had a very disabled child, part of what I want to do is allow them as much independence as is possible. If they don't need my help, I'm not going to help them. I will make sure that they're okay. You need a hand? But there are some that are very capable of getting on the bus all by themselves. There are some that you need to go out and guide them up. There are some that you have to go out and take their backpack from them. But I think you need to be cognizant of those differences. Let them be as independent as they are able to be, while at the same time acknowledging that they're there. And you can do that with greetings, good mornings, how are you? Get out when you go to the site to collect them in the afternoon and wait for them. Come on, let's go, ready to go home. But I don't think we jump out of the seat each every time. Just be
Mike's comment, and I'm sorry, I'd pass this around if I wasn't concerned that we'd get that feedback every time I gave it to someone else, so you could hear more directly from the person. And Mike, if I don't get this correctly, please let me know. Mike said there's two different issues we're dealing with. One is greeting and acknowledging everyone as to when they get on the bus and making sure that they are welcomed onto the vehicle, and the feeling of that can be done without necessarily getting out of the bus to do so. The second, again, came to the independence and knowing who needs the assistance from a safety perspective and who wants that independence to be able to do as much as they can on their own. Did I, for the most part, get that? Okay. Sounds good. Thank you. The comment was, we are curb to curb and not door to door. So by getting out of the bus, there's potentially that expectation that we take that extra step and help them up to the door, things like that. They don't understand that just getting out of the bus is ensuring that safety for them getting in and out of the bus, and expect that next level of getting them to their houses or to the program. So, did I get that correctly? Okay, thank you. Dorothy?
I think another aspect that we have to look at is what you guys are saying is probably true, but you can be an excellent walker and everything else, but you might have that day where you're off, so you should at least be at the bottom to be able to catch that person if they happen to fall. Everybody has an off day. So you have to take that into consideration for their safety.
So Dorothy's comment was the safety aspect. If you're at the door, if someone does happen to slip or have a fall, that you are there to be able to provide that support and help and catch if that does happen, and that there's a safety component to that as well. Is that correct, Dorothy? Alicia?
One other thing, no matter what you decide, everybody who has a route knows their people and knows what their ability and disability is. Communicating that to a sub-driver is something that is absolutely important, however you decide.
Thank you, Alicia. Alicia's comment was, our regular drivers have such a good knowledge of the people they transport and have those great relationships with those folks that they know what type of support is needed for most of the people or for the people on their route. But when sub-drivers step in, they don't have that same knowledge of those routes. So however we decide to move forward, it's important that those sub-drivers are aware of how these individuals are being handled when they get on and off the bus. Did I get that correctly? All right. Anything else before we move on to the next question? Yep.
I was doing the getting out for a while. I need to I'm trying to do my best to come to work and get that information. So there are times that you get out, unless I go because we're able to make it work. I just feel like that level of trouble. And as it is now, I have to come down to the meet, hook up something with religion. That alone is really cool. So if you can put our age into that and our issues, that would be.
So Thomas's comment was the physical challenge it puts on you as drivers to be getting up and down so many times with the number of drivers that we have. And for him, that's a challenge, and maybe a challenge for a number of other people. The physical nature of what that means. Yep, of the repetition of getting up and down. Did I get that correct? Okay. All right. Anything else before we move? Yep.
One of my concerns is we have a lot of different staff in these houses now that don't want to do their job.
them up on the lift, get them up the stairs. They will not come out the doors to do their job. They don't salt the driveways, they don't salt the sidewalks, they don't clear the snow even, they just send it along. And if we're out there, they figure that that's our job to take care of that.
Another comment regarding that, by getting out of the bus and being more visible to the staff at the house, that there's an increased expectation of what we are doing versus what they are doing at those locations. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. With that, this kind of leads into our next question. First of all, appreciate the feedback. This is, it's very helpful for us as we think through some of these, overarching decisions that truly impact you guys on a daily basis. So appreciate the feedback. The second question is, as we ask these type of things and ask for feedback, there's always a challenge of asking for feedback, right? If people give your feedback, and we always value that feedback. But at times, if we don't follow exactly what was told, people say, well, look, I provide feedback, and then they're not following it anyway. If feedback is not followed, it doesn't mean it's not valued. Value is greatly. There's a lot of things that come into some of these decisions, and when we do that, we want to be able to communicate decisions with all of you in the most effective way we can. And we've relied a lot on mental work. We try to put some of that, when we have answers to these types of meetings or staff surveys or those types of things, we try to put a written copy in dispatch. And we hear often that people haven't seen it, haven't heard it. We want to know if there's ways to more effectively communicate with you guys on a regular basis. And I think this is a great example. Once we talk through some of the feedback that we had on the getting up out of the buses and that, how to communicate that with you, how to communicate other things with you, where as many people as possible receive that information and are absorbing that information that we're trying to get out to you. So any ideas of ways to increase our ability to communicate with all of you in an effective manner is kind of the second question we have. Do you like the rent work? Do you pay attention to that? Does that hit most of you? Is that something that's effective?
You guys get those messages when things change after I've submitted the schedule. Like if a community gets canceled or if the time changes, you guys get those updates.
I'm
They
seeing
also appreciate a phone call this last minute.
Just one second, break down just a second. I'm seeing some nods and some shaking their heads, so it doesn't sound like there's unity in it. Thank you. So one comment was, if it's a last minute change, a phone call is very helpful. And again, not going to respond to all of these at this time because I don't want it to be a back and forth of things, but that's another comment. So for those of you that I saw shaking the head that went to work is not the most effective way. Suggestions on ways that we can reach you better. And Alicia, is this what your comment was about, or do you want to hold on to it? Yeah, we'll get back to it. We want to hit this first quickly.
I think that you have to be aware every day to check that. Because there's a day where I can check it, and I go in and I got it, forget to write it, that's my job. But, it's not always at the top of your, not process to check that every day, or, throughout the day, or at least, during your morning shift, your afternoon shift. That's
Two things here quickly. We have a remembering to continually check it and make sure there's no changes presents a challenge in that, yes, it's an effective way, but it's difficult to remember that we should always be checking it. And there's a comment that the popsicle stick could stop in and either check your when to work or check with dispatch is helpful to remind us that there has been a change and we need to do something. Did I get both those comments accurately reflected?
I just want to say it would be nice that if there is a change, we now get it through email, and then you can look on when to work. It'd be nice to just be all in the same spot. If there's a change,
So if there's a change,
we get the email, and then it's changed in when to work.
do you get an email that the two of them are not working together right now? Is that?
I think it's an extra step. I think you shouldn't have the email, it should just be on the when to work.
I think.
That's why I'm saying one spot, because if you don't know that it's changed, you check your email and you go, oh, something's changed, and then you come back to when to work and you go, oh, okay.
Well, and again, I may be inaccurate on this, but I think when to work automatically sends that email if there's been a change. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. So when to work sends the email to make sure there's a notification that there has been a change. So the two of them are supposed to be working together then. Okay, so and this is something from a technical standpoint we'll look into. The comment was there's a feeling that once we started working through Paylocity, that the when to work doesn't work as well, and the messages are not being sent, you're not getting the same level of consistency from the when to work that there was prior to Paylocity. Is that accurate? And I don't know if those two things are the same, or if it's just a coincidence that the two things happen at the same time and something changed. But the technology part of it we'll look into to see if there's a way we can improve some of that. So thank you. This is exactly the type of feedback that we are wanting and needing to hear. So,
I go to when you work to send those emails out, and they're send multiple, and then I'll get confused as to what's what. Like, if it's only changed once, they should maybe just do one email. That's happened a couple of times. I don't
okay. That there's multiple emails coming from when to work, and that convolutes
Yeah,
the idea of exactly what the changes are.
I've noticed that.
Okay. All right. Like when the weekly announcements or other messages are sent on when to work, does putting written copies of it in the dispatch office help to make sure that those that may not be looking at it regularly get it too? Or does that just allow you to not have to check your when to work as much?
Print this stuff out, put it on the wall somewhere, don't put it in this back wall. You get one person in there, and it's a problem. I mean, it's like that office is big enough to get 3, 4, 5 people standing in there, all trying to read something, and kids still can't do their work. Put it up by the time clock, pick a spot where you're gonna put it. Put everything there all the time.
The suggestion was the dispatch office is not the best place for written communications, that by the time clock, the friendly, consistent place is preferred because of the tightness in the dispatch office.
We have a communication board out there, so maybe we can utilize that.
Whitney's comment, there is a communication board out there, and maybe we can specify a certain area for regular communication. All right, unless someone has anything else, we have one more question. Anything else on that before we go to the last question? This last question is, some of the challenges that we have and that we hear about regularly is in regards to the loading and unloading at the sites. The feedback we want to hear either today, which there's some limited time to go over, but just in general, there's certain things that are under NewTrac's control and certain things that are just the reality of what we're dealing with our partner organizations or the challenges that other transportation companies bring. We can't dictate to Metro Mobility what their buses do, as much as we would love to, and have tried in the past to say, hey, we got a spot here for you, those types of things. They're just not going to follow either what we or our partner organizations say. And so when we talk through some of these loading and unloading recommendations and suggestions, we want as much of those suggestions to be specific to what we have control over. So that's kind of the last question, some of the feedback of things that we might be able to do differently at these sites to help with your loading and unloading procedures.
Lines. I don't know anymore, but Parkway, has that line moved up, that number one spot, remember how they said it's easier to load if that line is further up? And then at Commerce, making sure that when you're in that third spot, that you are on the line and not past it, so people can see what those first and second buses are doing. And then that fourth spot, I think the line should be further back, because I can never get that close. I'm always off the line on the fourth spot.
I'm not sure I can accurately reflect all those things. If, some of these suggestions in writing are really, really helpful for us. So, for me to try to repeat it and go through it and make sure we get it down accurately is going to be difficult. So, if you could, yeah. But if you could write that up, Lisa, we'd love to get that type of feedback. Yeah. And a lot of times, that's another comment. I'm sorry I said I wasn't going to go back and forth and how I'm doing that. As much as you can get us in writing is very, very helpful. Because if you're giving Patty or Mike a comment as you see them in our break room, as much as they do want to hear about it, by the time they get back to their office, they have maybe had 4 or 5 conversations with other people by the time they get back to the office. And that suggestion, as amazing and wonderful as it might have been at that time, it might not be the first thing on their mind when they get back into their office to mark down and to remind themselves of. And it doesn't mean that that comment wasn't very important to them. It's just, it was one of 4 or 5 things that they had retained or keep in their mind. So the more you can give them through an email or a written note or something with those type of suggestions, it's so helpful. So it's not putting so much pressure on them to remember all those conversations.
If only they had a notepad to write things down.
You can use one to work.
So the question was, at Commerce in particular here, cars which are families, in all likelihood, or could be another transportation company, are getting in line with our buses. And is that okay? Again, not going to get into all the finer points of this. There's only a certain amount of this that we can control ourselves. That's all I'm going to say regarding that at this time. We will try to communicate some responses to this in a larger, more broad-based hopefully on a designated spot on the communication board along with bunch of work as we move forward.
On your question, they have been falling in line with us, because before that, I don't know how many times I've filling out a contest, and I was going out of the way. So they have been falling in line with us. So it's been getting better.
Thomas just made a comment that it has been getting better at Congress, and that's been helpful that they've been in line with us. So, all right, Keisha should be here in a minute, and that's her like Lane. Couple other quick updates that I'll just go over as we're taking the time before our lunch gets here is we have 4 new buses that will be here in by the end of this month, and hopefully should be in service very, not by the end of the month, over thereafter. Another 4 buses in February, so 8 total at this time. And the communication I got was the next delivery of 8 sometime in the spring. And if they're telling me in the spring, I'm going to say sometime in the summer. Because that's typically how we're giving a little optimistic. Secondly,
Next month, we take cash.
we will have some buses for sale at that point too. So if anyone looking for buses, there will be some for sale.
Lightly used.
Heavily used. You notice the cones outside in the parking lot. The reason for those is that Barnett is getting ready to break ground on their new building, which they're hoping is in April or May, is that they're doing some parking lot work to improve the drainage. And so that area that is coned off is where that drainage work is going to do. And what they had asked is it makes that drainage work more difficult if any snowfall is packed down in that area. So that's why that is coned off right now. It's the first step of this is that drainage work in that area and try to make sure it's not too difficult for them to dig into it. So, again, we are very close to a signed lease. At that time, we will do some, I guess I'll call it sprucing up. There'll be some work done on the exterior, but also some work interior-wise. We'll do something different with the flooring in the break room. There'll be some work done in dispatch, looking at how possibly making the bathrooms more desirable out here. If there are other internal areas that you feel like need to be improved, please pass those ideas along to Mike Platt. And again, I will recommend as much as you can to do it in some type of writing, so it's not just him having to remember that. Any other organizational questions that we refer to that I can answer?
Mike, when are you going to do the director of the year thing?
What's that?
When are you going to do the drawing of the director of the year? Oh.
What's that? Next month, next February meeting?
I'm gonna do it this month, and I just totally forgot, so we'll do it next Friday meeting.
Next Friday.
I know, I'm old.
All right, anything else? Thank you. First of all, first and foremost, we appreciate the feedback. It is very meaningful to us. We hope that there's open communication lines just in general, so appreciate all that, and before we go ahead and 7 minutes.